And welcome to the second weather and climate chat of the young fall 2016 semester with Dr. Michael Davis and Monsoon Mike. Dr. Davis, welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome to week number 2. Semester going okay so far? I know you can't really judge based on a week, but
And not too bad. My students seem very engaged, so I'm very happy about that, and I think we're off to a good semester.
Okay, sounds good. Well, of course, the past week and weekend has, in the weather news, has been totally overwrought by a certain Hermine. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, it's Hermine.
I heard some people say Hermione, but then I heard it corrected that the National Weather Service or NOAA is pronouncing it Hermine.
Yeah, there's no O in it.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay,
It's just Hermine.
Okay, so that's the difference. Okay, so last week this time it looked like it was going to be a non-issue, and then all of a sudden Thursday and Friday, then the models started giving people a good scare, and it was going to be a major issue for the shore. It was never really going to be a major issue for us, at least that I saw. At most, we would have potentially had some rain, some wind, but it was never going to be a major issue for us. But some meteorologists were really getting nervous about the New Jersey and Delaware shores, but then nothing, or very little. I mean, choppy surf, some rain, some wind, but nothing compared to what it could have been.
Unless you were by the coast,
Yeah.
you really didn't experience any major effects from Hermine.
And I see some meteorologists, won't mention names, are getting blasted for, scaring people. And, it was, another busted forecast. What happened? Why did we go from nothing to major problem to nothing?
Leading up to Hermine pretty much coming on shore, there were two, I'm going to say, general solutions that the models were hinting at. One was essentially bringing it up off the North Carolina coast and
Right.
then kind of spinning and sitting
Right.
off the Delmarva, Delaware coastline
Right.
for days, probably like 2-3 days or so. The other solution had it kind of going further out to sea and not really affecting much in the way of land. That was the European model, pretty much leading the way with the further seaward solution, while the GFS was bringing it closer toward shore. There was a very sharp drop-off in terms of precipitation and wind on the westward side of the storm. You also had a high pressure pretty much sitting over southern Ontario and toward Lake Ontario and Buffalo, New York that way. That was helping keep very dry air in place. So meteorologists knew that there was going to be a very sharp cutoff as soon as you go inland with rain, wind, and whatnot from Hermine. And that's pretty much what happened. I think the European probably got it more correct when they brought it further out to sea by 200-300 miles or so. Mm-hmm. It did stall out, though, and it's currently still spinning about a couple hundred miles southeast of the tip of Long Island. And it's going to be sitting there for probably another day or two and then move out toward the northeast, head closer to New England.
Now, not to pat ourselves on the back, but you and I both have, on our pages, kind of always thought that it was going to be more of an out-to-sea type solution. But we can't be harsh on our weather forecasters down the shore who were thinking the worst possible, because some of the models were legitimately going with a much more coastal type solution.
And you have to err on the side of caution.
You have to err on the side of caution.
Situation, because if you had that low pressure system that Hermine would have been sitting off the coast
for days,
you're going to have a horrible beach erosion. You're going to have storm surge. You're going to have life-threatening conditions potentially along the shoreline. You do not want to put anyone in harm's way. And if you even think that there's a chance of that happening, which the models were reasonably hinting at, you should warn the people of that situation.
Right. And they did. And fortunately, that didn't happen, so we consider that good. And I'm looking outside as we're recording this right now, 12:30 on Tuesday. I'm always wanting to say Monday, but it technically is a Monday at Kutztown with our Monday-Tuesday schedule. But it's pretty breezy out there, and we can actually attribute some of that wind to Hermine, right? The pressure gradient.
We still have the pressure gradient existing between our post-tropical system now and the high pressure is pretty much sitting over upstate New York.
Now, as for the rest of the week, I mean, it's pretty dry, at least in this area and a lot of areas. My wife and I drove over the Schuylkill River in our county, Schuylkill County, and there was a couple guys over the holiday weekend that were pulling a canoe and actually walking in the river and pulling the canoe because their canoe would not float. That's how low the river was. We need some rain, but there really is no chances of any major rains over the next week. We're with the hot, dry summer of 2016 marches on.
Yeah, the high pressure system that's currently in place is going to be sliding off the southeast coast probably sometime tomorrow, and then allowing winds to shift out of the south, and then temperatures are going to be climbing into the low 90s, potentially mid 90s by the end of the week.
Now, if we were still in the middle of summer, like July and August, that wouldn't be so unusual. But for September, early September, when the normal highs should be low 80s, upper 70s, that's a good 10 to 15 degrees above normal.
Yes. So we'd be seeing very warmer than usual temperatures now. Going back to the water availability, we're about 3-4 inches below normal for most of the area for the year. Right now, we're about quarter of an inch or so below for the season, which is only a few days old now since meteorological autumn started September 1st.
That is true. And I don't know if it's a trend that we're seeing nowadays with, potentially climate change or the like, but I was comparing this September to past Septembers, and this heat that we're having this week, unfortunately, really isn't all that unusual. Last September was a very warm September. Right around now, we had a lot of 90-degree days. I don't know if you remember that. And I believe the prior September was pretty toasty as well, too. So is this a trend that we're starting to see all these toasty Septembers nowadays?
It certainly seems that way, that we're getting warmer Septembers than usual. Probably from residual heat left over from the summer.
Right.
It's staying in the atmosphere. You still have a very high sun angle. The peak in hurricane season is next week.
Yep.
So that's typically when the northern hemisphere's ocean temperatures are the warmest to support convective uplift. And the land's no different. You have that warm air pretty much sitting over the land, and you're going to get those warmer temperatures.
And it looks like the rest of September, as we've been saying for a long time, and as do our weather colleagues at other services, are continuing to say that September looks to err on the side of above normal. I'm looking at the second half of September. It looks like we get back to a little closer to normal, but still leaning on the above average side.
Yeah, September's looking warmer than average, but hopefully by the end of September we're closer to the average rather than 15, 20 degrees or so above normal.
Yeah, I looked at the 10-day. It looks the GFS has being very warm, very hot until we get a strong cold front coming through somewhere around Saturday night, it looks like, and that could just contribute to some showers and thunderstorms. But it's just been so hard to squeeze anything out of the atmosphere that might not even be that much rain. We'll see.
And if you're starting to get the atmospheric moisture building up in terms of dew point and higher humidity levels, you can have all the water vapor in the air you want, but if you don't have any sort of trigger mechanism to get the water out to initiate thunderstorms, it's just going to stay up there.
One light at the end of the tunnel for people that don't like this kind of hot weather in September. I saw AccuWeather say that I'm not sure if you agree that the dew points won't be quite as brutal as they were in July and August when we had those heat waves with this particular heat wave coming up.
Yeah, I find it kind of hard to believe that we're going to get like really tropical air in place for September.
So it'll be uncomfortable, but it won't be totally brutal like the last one was.
Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about like July type feel to it.
And then after that cold front comes through, models are waffling a little bit on that, but generally Saturday night, early Sunday, I've seen some seasonal weather Monday and Tuesday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of next week with even still a little bit above average, low 80s, and we really should be upper 70s at that point, but more seasonal, we'll say.
Yes. Yeah. So we start to like get closer to seasonal by October.
Yeah.
And then November, I think, was that when we saw temperatures dropping to like below normal?
Well, that's a good segue for our other fun little thing before I let you go, because I know you're a busy man today. We are just, if you're just tuning in this particular week and missed last week, we're doing one fun thing this year where we printed out AccuWeather's famous, whatever you want to call it, 90-day forecast. And I'm actually taking the effort to every day sit down, check the highs and lows, and see how close it is. And obviously, as we get further out from when I printed this off on August 29th, we'll see how their forecast holds up, and it'll get a little weaker. But, yeah, they were saying September and October above average. November leaned a little on the below average temperature-wise. So we'll see how that goes. How did they do this past week? Well, you and I discussed off air that we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt for plus or minus 3 degrees.
Yes.
And I'm only going to check highs. I'm not going to check lows. I'm not going to make this any harder than it has to be. And also checking, the sky conditions as well, how they did. This past week, I'd say they did fairly well, but you would expect that because that was only 7 days since I printed this out.
Yeah, and the weather models have a good enough understanding of the upcoming week to at least make a good assessment as temperatures.
The only day that they really busted on, 2 days that we'll give them half credit on. Last Thursday, that front came through a little later than we were expecting at first, and instead of clouds breaking for sun, we actually had periods of rain in the morning that didn't break until the end of the day. So, and then yesterday they busted a little bit on the cool side. They only had a high of 84 last week for yesterday, whereas average between Allentown and Redding's highs was actually pretty toasty yesterday. Made it all the way up to 88. And I saw that. I was watching my thermometer at home. I'm like, this is a little warmer than we were expecting, but maybe that's a sign of a pretty toasty week coming up here.
Yeah, it's probably from the higher pressure sitting in place, allowing the sun to heat up the surface of the earth.
Nights have been comfortably cool, though, so I haven't complained too much about that.
Not a lot of cloud cover overnight, which is contributing to the cooler temperatures.
So good for, as they call it, radiational cooling.
Correct.
So, well, you know me. I want some good old-fashioned down-home sweater weather, but probably not any sweater weather coming up until at least October is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I would agree there. I think September is going to be pretty much at or above average in terms of temperature, and we may even see some 90s this week.
Okay. Well, hopefully that's the last of the 90s. I'm not going to go out on the limb and say we still couldn't have 90s.
I will.
You're going to.
I will.
Yeah. And I remember because I actually remember one particular case. My wife's cousin got married in September 22nd, I want to say, 2010, I think. Or was it 9? Or is it 11? I don't know. Somewhere around there, 92 degrees on September 22nd. So it can still happen. It can still happen.
Not out of the realm of possibility, but I'll go out on the limb.
Yeah, she purposely chose that particular time of year. She's like, it'll be nice weather. And everybody was drenched in sweat. It was pretty funny. and then the sad thing was the cold front came through that night and dropped temperatures back down to seasonal levels the next day. It's like, you missed it by one day.
They probably had a lot of rainfall with it, too.
Yeah, I think there was, yeah. But, okay, well, I'll let you go, Dr. Davis. Busy week for you this week. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Sounds good.
All right.